Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio, second hour. Thank you, Dr. Tim. I hope I didn't get in there and interrupt your show. I accidentally hit the wrong app. But we're delighted that you're here and that we get to have this opportunity to say hello. Welcome, Buffy and Susan and everybody else who's joining us. Melanie, glad you're here. And if anyone has any thoughts, questions, answers, ideas, please push the talk button, answer the little quiz below the talk button or the call button, and then hit the call button once again down below, and we'll be having a conversation. Would love to say hello. What's happening? How can we support you? What's most exciting in your life? And we do have a caller, so let me get to there. It's Miss Susan. Welcome, young lady. How are you?
Hi,
Are you
Michael.
back home?
We are back
Hey,
home.
young lady.
Hi.
Oh,
Um, I had a question that's off the beaten track for you, but since you cover a lot of bases, I wanted to hear what you have to say about brain fog.
been there, done that.
You have? How'd you get rid of it?
I have. Detox. Basically, if you imagine yourself in a house with a lot of windows and you went around spraying water everywhere or toxic chemicals everywhere, they would
Mm-hmm.
build up on the windows and you'd have a fog. And it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same thing. And so when you detox your body, when you get enough, one of the keys is getting enough sleep so that the brain can literally eliminate toxins.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. But I went many years with brain fog and
Wow.
started to do some fasting, cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
Did several times did liver cleanses,
Wow.
and haven't seen brain fog in a couple of decades now. But I
Wonderful.
used to live there.
Wow. And that was before people were talking about brain fog.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a naturopathic thing to detox yourself. Actually, I've been thinking about. I really just haven't haven't had the willpower to do it. I'm actually looking forward to the intensive. We're doing all the fresh and raw food, but I've been
Uh-huh.
inclined to get back on track with doing the 1 day a week fast, that sort of thing, which I just haven't done in too long. But fortunately, brain's pretty clear.
That's great.
It is.
Congratulations. Well, that was
What
my question.
well, what else is exciting in your world? How did your journey
Well,
go there?
oh, it was heaven. It was just heaven to be with my daughter and her new husband, who is so good to her. It's like finally, she had, she must have had some matching bags of garbage with her previous husband, but she must have cycled through them or something because she met her high school, a guy who adored her in high school, and she didn't pay him any attention. He wasn't one of those glamorous guys. He's a little bit on the spectrum, actually. He's extremely bright. He's a medical doctor, um, and does the most challenging work. He works as a children's intensivist in the ER. And what he sees are catastrophes, people losing their children.
Wow.
And we've asked him, how do you do it? Because he stays okay. He says it's very hard to see the suffering, but I keep telling myself my hands and my feet are God's hands and feet. And I'm doing what
Yay.
God would do if he had the hands and feet. And I'm not responsible. I do my best, but I'm not responsible for the outcome. He has given up goals. That's what he's done. He just goes in there, does what's necessary, and he's in a new place because when he married my daughter, she didn't want to leave her cathedral where she was the dean. So he found work down there, and he's reorganizing the entire department, and they love him. It's just miraculous. And when he comes home, and his hours, talk about lack of sleep. He'll go for 48 hours without sleep, and then he'll come home and he'll say, I got to sleep. He'll disappear. And then he's managed, he doesn't have brain fog either. And he's also, he was overweight, seriously overweight when they re-met. He hadn't been in high school. When she met him again, they talked first and then they met, and she just thought he was the most wonderful man. And he has since then lost about 100 pounds.
Wow.
It's amazing. He never looked like a big bowl of jelly. Somehow he's very muscular. He could carry it all right, but he's just been a total gift, and she is very happy. And he has 3 children, and get this, his oldest is a gay man on the spectrum. His second child is now female, but is on the spectrum and started off as a male. The third one is a gay female on the spectrum. All 3 of them very bright. How he was dealt that hand, I don't know, except that he is the perfect father for them.
Sounds like an exceptional man,
He is an
especially stepping into that kind of an emergency room
oh my
setting with
God.
small children. That's just
And
takes a special kind of person.
it does. And my son's work wasn't nearly as stressful in that way, but he had to leave, as you know. But this guy, I wonder even if being a little bit on the spectrum is a help. He isn't wired the way, quote, regular people are. And I couldn't explain that. He's socially a little bit unaware. You have to tell him he's awfully good natured, but you have to tell him something if you want him to pick up on something. He isn't just directly totally intuitive. Uh, I don't know where to go with that. But anyway, you asked me. I'm going on and on. I realize.
Well, that's awesome. If you haven't seen it, and I know I mentioned it before, the movie, um, oh, her name's just Temple Grandin
Oh,
is the
I've
name of
seen
the
it.
film.
Oh, amazing,
And,
amazing.
where being on the spectrum is simply differently enabled, but
Yeah.
because our culture's not used to it. And it
Uh-huh.
sounds like this man is really differently enabled than the average bear, able to
Yeah.
handle the kind of traumas that he has. And
Yeah. He's just perfect for it somehow, and he isn't as extreme as Temple Grandin. You wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even
right,
know. But kind of over time, you can see things. I've been around, like I have a grandson who's on the spectrum, and not much, but there are some differences.
right.
So anyway, but we drove 6 hours north from Jacksonville to South Carolina to Furman University to watch my daughter's youngest boy sing the lead in an opera. And I'm telling you, I never really heard of this university, and I've been to great music schools. This performance was worthy of being at the Met. And they were fabulous. And he's madly in love with this young woman who sings soprano and sang the lead opposite him. So it was just a thrill because they were expressing their own love for each other in this opera.
So perfect.
And it was adorable. It was just totally adorable. And we were so energized by it that I still haven't come down off cloud 9. We got home, but I am finding that I'm having strong episodes of brain fog, especially when I'm working with the refugees. I think it's the stress they're under. Nothing outside of me can cause my whatever it is, but there's something going on there, I think. And also sleep. I didn't sleep much last night. Every once in a while that happens, and so it's been worse today. But I've been wondering if it's diet. I eat really clean. I stay off sugar. I don't eat much dairy, maybe a little splash of half and half in the morning and coffee. I know you don't approve of coffee. Um, but I've got this and I'm curious about it. So I'm glad to hear that it can be overcome by doing certain things.
For sure, and we'll be holding the space. And it's nice to hear you
Thanks.
say the thing about sleep, that
Yeah,
you didn't sleep well last night, like it's
yeah.
become more of a, or less of an occurrence, where it used to be, as I understood it, pretty much continuous, not
It was
sleeping well. So,
continuous. It was really bad. But I'm on these bioidentical hormones,
ah,
um, and they help. They just
yep,
help. So, uh,
awesome.
thanks. Well, thanks for
Lots of
listening.
good clean water and rest.
Yeah, I'm not doing enough water. You're right. It isn't. I'm not thirsty, so I forget. But you have to do it anyway, don't you?
You have to do it anyway. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, if you think of water, every sip of water that you think of, or that you drink, if you think of it as a baptism
Mm,
for the forgiveness of toxicity, for the
nice.
removal of what doesn't belong, you're
Hmm.
baptizing the cell, and without fluid, the cell becomes congested.
Yeah.
And when you flood the cell with fluid, then it's able to float out, literally eliminate what it doesn't need. And
Yeah.
it literally is for the forgiveness of those energies that never belonged within us,
Yeah. And I think we
often known
probably,
by an old Greek word called sin.
yeah, I think we need a lot more than we think we do. I heard once that twice, no,
half,
what is it?
half your body weight in ounces. This is about right.
Half your body weight in ounces. Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
Right. Oh, well, thank you. That's good.
Yep.
Helpful.
My
Carry
my
on.
standard is I take in about 50 ounces of water before I touch anything to do with food in the morning. That's my morning routine.
50.
Till I till I get my first 50 ounces of water in, I don't touch food.
Good for you. I'm going
And
to have to
I
do
found
that.
that
I've been
works
doing
well for
20
my body.
ounces. Oh, boy.
I'll give it a try and see what happens.
All right. Thanks.
All right, young lady, you have a blessed one. Any other thoughts?
Thanks. Not at the moment. I'm lying down just listening.
All right. Well, have a blessed one.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Take care. Bye bye. So if you're out there in listener land, let's continue the conversation. What's happening? Anyone have a thought for us? Question, answer, idea? How is your work moving forward? And if there are no questions, then I'm going to jump in and pick up, do a little bit of review from where we were talking about people being at peak experience. And of course, once you have one of those peak experiences, like who wouldn't want to live there all the time? And so a reminder that if you're doing your work and you do experience one of those peak experiences, the challenge to keep that going on a continuous basis is that every time you access a new level of vitality, a new level of the presence of love, love being the master solvent for trauma, means that something in you by that new level of vitality has been loosed. And the new level of vitality opens what perhaps you've never looked at, never seen, never worked with, and maybe never projected. And so if something opens and one does not do the work to clean up what the new level of vitality shows them, then that dissociated content can become the new root of the perceptual output of the mind and the new norm for someone's point of view of the world. And if suffering is their thing, then it becomes their new norm for suffering. Oh, yeah, I got rid of that one from last week, but now I have a new one. So remembering that ultimately, my offering is that we are not designed to have an unconscious mind. We're designed to have a conscious and a subconscious mind. What's the difference between conscious, subconscious, and unconscious? Well, it all has to do with the literal amplitude at what brain cells are firing. So right now, there are brain cells in you that I know you've got, but you're not aware of them right now. They're at a subconscious level. But if I provide a stimulus, then those brain cells will take on some of the energy of my voice. And it's kind of like turning up the volume on that content in your own mind. And I'm going to actually do a little experiment. We're going to engage in the process of making the subconscious conscious, and at the same time linking ideas together that, if you've never heard me do this example before, will now link them in your mind. So yesterday I talked about don't think about the color of your car, and today I'm going to suggest that you don't think about a purple alligator. Now, I know you have brain cells for the word purple, and I know you have brain cells for the word alligator. And so when I speak those words, literally the energy from my voice through the speaker on your phone hits your eardrum and causes those brain cells to fire. Information stored in your cellular structure. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, when we're talking about brain cells, we're simply talking about the capacity of every cell in the structure to store information. Now, it's designed to be conscious, subconscious, and the conscious and subconscious are constantly changing places. If I say, what's the front door of your house look like? You know what that looks like. The energetic pattern of the look of the front door of your house is stored in brain cells. But, you maybe haven't particularly thought about that for forever. But now that I speak it, those brain cells literally resonating in response to the energy coming from my voice fire, and you can become aware of what the front door of your house looks like. What's your favorite item of clothing? What's your favorite food? Notice you're not thinking about the color of your car. Of course, none of that has to do with thinking. That's all just resonating content in the mind. Now, if I said, you know that you have a major issue in your life that you need to work through, and I would like you to tell me, I'd like you to share with me right now, right this minute, hit the phone call button and share with me what that major issue is and what you need to do to resolve it. And just my speaking those words, notice for most people, and this is rhetorical, we don't have to get on the show and talk about it, but most people just started to hold their breath. And the breath determines what we hold at an unconscious level. And when something starts to resonate something that's in the unconscious, the automatic inclination is to shut down the breath to prevent that information from coming forward. A new level of vitality allows you to access new parts of your own unconscious mind. And when those new layers and those new levels come up, if people are not deeply committed to doing their work, then they can get stuck in that new material that's been they have now got access to from the unconscious. So my take is there should not be a barrier or a veil, as it was called in the ancient teachings, in our temples. When they said in the scriptures the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious needs to be opened. It doesn't belong there. And so the ultimate goal of this work is to have access to everything that you hold in your mind at any time you choose to. And if you're believing in a mind fueled by fear and hostility, then you're stuck in believing that a mind in fear and hostility could possibly tell you the truth. And if you access new levels of fear and hostility because you get to a new level of vitality, then the mind will tell you stories, but the fear and hostility are markers that truth isn't really being told. If there is irritation, fear, hostility in the mind's constructs, my perception, thinking that that construct can inform me of anything true is really kind of foolish. because what it's showing me is the content of my own mind. David Bohm, who we spoke about earlier, said a great many people think they are thinking, but they are just rearranging their prejudices. My offering would be that if your perception, and this is just the invitation as to how often one needs to do their work. If your perception is disturbed in any way by any form of hostility or fear, and especially if you're talking as though your perception is true about something outside of you rather than true about you, if you're talking about this being true the same way that you talked about it being true about somebody else the last 10 times it came up, then what Bohm is describing is your behavior, rearranging prejudices. The objective of this work is to actually do what it takes to unwind the intricacies of the power person dynamic in our minds, and do that while maintaining the presence of love, and and to give yourself the time and the space, literally each day, to really be in that connected space of active present love and deliver it to your body on a tissue level. Maintaining the presence of love is a monumental task that few will ever truly achieve on their own. But the practice of breathing, and if you've got a pain in your big toe, if you've got a pain in your kneecap, if you've got a pain anywhere, or if you don't have even the slightest discomfort, or you just want to vitalize, then breathe and consciously, purposely put that energy of love into your tissue structure. Put it wherever your structure needs it, and allow the dissolution out of whatever energetic dynamics are there that don't belong. This creates an opening and literally the healing of generational physical, mental, and emotional traumas. And the objective of this work is literally ultimately to open all of those generational patterns. And I see a couple of folks on the show from that weren't there yesterday, and so I'm going to go ahead. I shared this poem yesterday. I had intended to share it later in the show, but I shared it earlier when we were in the middle of a conversation. But just to have the awareness of what each and any of us ultimately need to deal with. Here's a quote, and I've read it many times over the years, but it fits here with this thing of hitting new levels of vitality and recognizing that if that brings something up for you, that's the place to be really committed to doing the next level of your work. So this gentleman named Francois Fenelon was I believe he was an archbishop in the church back in the early 1700s, late 1600s, early 1700s. And obviously, he wasn't about the standard church game. He was about understanding what the real work of Yeshua was and what we needed to apply forgiveness to. So here's Francois Fenelon, pre 1715, saying, as the light increases, we see ourselves to be worse than we thought. We're amazed at our former blindness as we see issuing forth from the depths of our heart a whole swarm of shameful feelings like filthy reptiles crawling from a hidden cave. We never could have believed that we harbored such feelings. And we stand aghast as we watch them gradually appear. But while our faults diminish, the light by which we see them waxes brighter, and we're filled with horror. And then he comes up with okay, so now that I've shown you the depth, now let me reach my hand out and offer you hope. And that is, he says, bear in mind, and I mean, this is just brilliant insight. He's really talking about the healing process and what happens when you hit a new level of vitality. So he's talking about all this content in the unconscious. And then he says, bear in mind for your comfort that we only perceive our malady, the disease, when the cure begins. In other words, it's only as you reach a new level of awareness, a new level of vitality, that you really are able to tap into what's there. And actually doing what it takes to unwind the intricacies of the power person dynamic and maintain the presence of love in the mind is what this work is all about. There's a woman named Donna Hancock, and she wrote a little piece about the experiences that the world has been through in our lifetimes. And I'll just invite you to visualize what she invites people to visualize, to get an overview of what it is that we need to do in order to clean up the scourge of war, of violence, of starvation, of insanity on the planet. So this was written in 2024. So imagine this is you. When you are 14, World War I starts and ends on your 18th birthday, and 22 million people have been killed. Later in that year, a Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until you're 20. 50 million people died in those 2 years from the Spanish flu. When you reach the age of 29, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%. The global gross domestic product drops 27%, and that runs for 8 years until you're 33. Or pardon me, for 4 years until you're 33. The country nearly collapses along with the world economy. Then when you turn 39, World War II starts. You aren't even over the hill yet. When you're 41, the US is fully pulled into the war. And now between your 39th and 45th birthday, another 75 million people perish in war. That was just World War II. The Holocaust killed 6 million people in that time frame. At age 52, this person experiences on the planet the Korean War, another 5 million people. At 64, the Vietnam War begins. 4 million die. Approaching your 62nd birthday, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis. Life on the planet as we know it could have actually ended at that point. Fortunately, great leaders prevented it from happening. As this person turns 75, the Vietnam War ends. Think of everyone on the planet born in 1900, and how do they survive that? It's a perspective to look at and to recognize what, if you haven't personally been through all of that, you've probably been through at least part of it, and your immediate ancestors went through it. All of that. Fortunately, there's never been a storm in world history that has lasted forever, and this too will pass. But the reason I bring that up is to ask the question, are you doing anything about putting an end to that scourge? Personally. Are you stepping into the place where you function as the active presence of love and contribute to the permanent resolution of war on the planet? And in order for that to change, in order for war on the planet to change, that issue must be tackled at its root. Each mind in conflict contributes to the energy of conflict on the planet. And the objective of making these tools available on a universal scale is what these tools are all about. And so I just put forward the question for you to contemplate and perhaps share your thoughts about of what are you personally doing in that regard. You know, it's healing minds in conflict, not conflict resolution that we need. There's a big push in the world for conflict resolution, but that isn't going to solve the problem. Conflict resolution will help to shift things, but it's only the individual who really stepped up to the plate and does their work that's going to bring a major change to what's happening on the planet. Does that resonate anything for you? What's on your mind? What what would it take for you to make the next major contribution to shift literally the presence of any form of conflict on planet Earth? If you go back 2,000 years ago, the tools that were presented by this man Yeshua were designed to inform each mind exactly how the mind worked. Unfortunately, most of that has been lost to the Greek language and the Greek culture, stepping in, walking over the Aramaic, misinterpreting what was given, and turning it around backward. And recognizing that things like health, wealth, happiness, and the presence of love are personal responsibility. It's not something that the creator can give back to you if you've given them away. You remember when I spoke about the quantum still point session that I did on myself, and the piece of teaching that I got in that particular session was the recognition that we were given the whole thing, the whole solution. We were given the presence of love right with the first breath. And the work of Yeshua was to hand people the tools with which to regain and retain that which was given to us from the very beginning. And so this body of work is designed to support and give instructions for people to really truly live in the original state in which we were created as human beings, as the presence of love. If you look at, the first law according to Yeshua, and they ask him what's most important in the law, he doesn't, the stuff that's, consuming the world today, he doesn't get into illicit sex and adultery or theft or sin, but he gets into the lack of love, loveless homes, loveless churches, loveless leaders, loveless politics, loveless policies. Those the poet addressed when he said, men who live lives of quiet desperation. And to recognize that holding to or anesthetizing yourself against any form of hostility or fear is a thing that voids the direct experience of yourself as the active presence of love. There's a writer named Woodrow Kroll, and he said, some people are making an eternal mark while others are just writing in the sand. Unfortunately, the teachings of Yeshua has been used as a weapon to hack at those who don't go along with the dogma of the doctrine. You listen to language like soldiers for Christ, as opposed to those who are willing to take responsibility for their lives and heal. And when we live in that blame game, when we live as members of the one world universal religion of blame, that the problem's out there, that's when people want to pick up and fight. But if you look at his work, he never aimed for victory or superiority or conversion, except to convert each one from an egotistical, self-centered being back to the true created essence of who we are. And that is to convert our minds to devices which are fueled by that which they were designed for from the beginning, and that is the active presence of love. You listen to Yeshua, he never offered hell to anybody who didn't accept him. What he offered over and over and over was compassion and love. And that it was that only the mind that was fueled by the active presence of love that could understand what was being said. And so to have the practical tools to confront each event where the mind falls into some form of hostility or fear his basic message was, whatever you've done, if you're not able to stand as a space of love, and to me, this is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to the world and give to each other. If you're not able to stand as a space of love, or you come across someone you perceive as not being able to stand as a space of love, can you give them yours? Can you hold that space for them? Can you embrace the person who's erred and show your true nature? Stay connected with your true nature rather than the conditional acceptance that the non-being mind tends to offer. What excuses does the mind have for not bringing forward the presence of love? And what do you have to do to collapse that excuse in the mind? When we really look at the whole suffering and death of the man named Yeshua, he was murdered, and then they killed him again when they killed his teachings. And if you haven't listened, I don't have the dates, but recently, like within the last few months, Jeannie played all 4 hours of the workshop, Aramaicisms, which is a word that I coined to represent our efforts to reestablish the first century meanings of Yeshua's words. You might want to go back if you weren't on those shows. I see a few names that are new to the show. You might want to go back and look up, if you look in the archives in YouTube and look for Aramaicisms. There are 4 1-hour shows. It's actually an audio track. Jeannie converted it from the video that normally is available only for sale through our catalog. But she did a special series where she took those 4 hours and converted them to audio tracks, and they're available on YouTube. And each of the key words that the Greeks have turned backward, like love, in our culture, love, what is it, sexual athletics, or putting your head on the chopping block so you can prove that you're self-sacrificing and that you love someone. As opposed to love is the state of our original created essence. And that original created essence is the only thing that will free us from the conflict of the generations, the pain and the trauma that most people drug themselves against. Don't make me feel this. Is that fitting? Is that making sense? Does that arouse any thoughts for you? Put a note in the comments if you have a thought, or push the call button and let's have a conversation. How can we support you? What's on your mind? There's several people on the switchboard that haven't had conversations with in a while. Push one and say hello. Jose would love to hear your voice. Dawn, Buffy. How can we support you? What's exciting in your world? The permanent resolution of war is going to come when a critical mass of people face the hostility and fear-based capacity of their minds and literally disable that capacity. That's our objective here. That's precisely what we're here to support. One of the tools that can be really profoundly useful in uncovering unconscious dynamics is the mind shifter tool. And a mind shifter, in the context of this work, is a thought. Well, let me back up a little bit. The world tends to, or many circles in the world, talk about affirmations. And my take for most people is that when people use and get all excited about affirmations, what they're doing is they're engaging in thoughts that they know aren't true in the hope that they can make them true or force them to be true. We have a different suggestion other than affirmations. We suggested if you've got an affirmation, why are you attracted to that affirmation? Well, because I need it. It's not true for me. Okay, so here's what to do. Rather than sit around and affirm, 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 and we call that, or in my book, if you remember, I call that premature positive thinking. Positive thinking on top of a negative foundation will simply tend to create a structure that sooner or later will collapse. Where the objective of the mind shifter, when you take exactly what you used as an affirmation and you turned into a mind shifter, what happens is you get to see the hidden parts of your mind that go against that being true for you. And that's where healing happens. So the way you use a mind shifter is that you take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of the page. And on the left-hand side of the page, you write the mind shifter. And then you just free associate and let anything that comes up in your mind in response to that mind shifter surface and write it on the right-hand side of the page. So now, if there's something that you say, well, I need that affirmation because that's not true for me. Well, why isn't it true, Creator? It's not true because there's a part of you that says you can't have it or you don't deserve it or there's some sort of a block. And the objective of the mind shifter is to utilize the same thought as you would use as an affirmation, write it and let it resonate whatever's going on inside of your mind. And if you'll, especially around issues where you've got really serious challenges, then as you write and breathe, because the storage system we call the mind operates through resonance, that mind shifter will resonate everything unlike itself and show it to you. Now, as people write the mind shifter, they tend to go into an unconscious state. Literally, as unconscious dynamics come up, people tend to go unconscious. But the objective here, and even if you do, if you get something that really triggers a lot of stuff for you, go in deeply, write it, write it, write it. Just do a free flow of everything out on the page. Then afterward, go back to it and take a look at what did I miss here? What was I unconscious about? And then determine what tools you're going to use to clean up that part of your mind. And of course, that's the space where you want to breathe and simply allow those things to come to the surface. Now, there's a system that we use, and actually, we do a monthly Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing group. And each month we have what we call an ever expanding Mind Shifters list. You'll find on our website, for years, we've had a set of 3 Mind Shifters or 3 sets of Mind Shifters. There are 13 in each set, and that's a list that I've used for years. But since we started the Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing Club that meets every month, we bring out a new set every month. So we're now up to 30 sections of mind shifters instead of just 3. And there are 13 in each set. And the system that I devised years ago, actually, I didn't devise it. Somebody was using it and I went, that works. And it really does work, was to simply pick 2 numbers and allow your intuition, to start out with. So I'm going to invite you to be guided to 2 numbers and pick a number from 1 to 20 or 1 to 30. And then pick a second number from 1 to 13. And allow that to be your mind shifter. And if you'd like to just, jot in the comments your 2 numbers, or if you want to hit the caller button and give me your 2 numbers, we'll hand out some mind shifters. So if you want to pick a number from 1 to 13 and write it in the comments, and then a second number from 1 to 30, Pardon me, I got that backwards. From 723. Perfect, Buffy. Yes. So that would be write a number from 1 to 30 and then a number from 1 to 13, and that will give you the the mind shifter that is perfect for you right now. So Buffy, yours is 723. All right, give me a second. Let me just get to 23. Actually, it would be reversed. It would be 23-7. I put that backward. The 23 is the number of sections, so that we need to go to section 23 and then to mind shifter number 7 in that group. So 23-7 is, if you want to write this down, my bracket mom / bracket dad, my mom, dad, whichever one would be the appropriate blank to fill in, was, is, and always has been fully there for me, embracing me in his or her love. So use the words that are appropriate. If it's mom, then in her love. If it's dad. So my mom or dad, whichever one you choose to put in the blank, or maybe you want to do both of them, do them separately, was, is, always has been fully there for me, embracing me in his or her love. My mom, dad is, or pardon me, was, is, always has been fully there for me, embracing me in his or her love. That's 23-7. And Celinda, you've got 27-5. Let's see what you found here. Let's go to 27. So section 27, that's a section on healing male, female energies. Each section has a title. I didn't give you the title on yours, Buffy, but I'll go have a look at it. So 27, actually, still the 27 would be the section. So it's from 1 to 13. So if you want to just jot in a second number there from 1 to 13, there's no number 15. We've got 27 as a section. So if you want to just jot in the second number that comes to mind, Celinda, from 1 to 13. And Buffy, okay, Celinda, let's see, we'll do that. So number 8. So 27-8 is, it's easy and pleasant for me. Oh, this is interesting. This will give you and your husband some fun. It's easy and pleasant for me to brazenly flirt with and or approach the man I'm attracted to. It's easy. So 27-8. It's easy and pleasant for me when I brazenly flirt with and or approach the man I'm attracted to. So, gee, you and Larry might just have a great night tonight. Had some zest by doing some flirting. And Buffy, you're saying getting over, ouch, the virus. Hmm. Well, I'm glad that mind shifter's on track for you, and we certainly extend love into your space. Getting that ozone moving around the house and cleaning up the residuals of the virus. Holding a space for you, get to breathe lots of fresh air. And we'll look forward to you feeling well enough to call in to get over that virus and get back on track, rock and roll. Okay, we just got a couple minutes left. Anybody else have two numbers for us? First number, select from 1 to 30, the second number from 1 to 13. There are 30 sections. Each one has 13 mind shifters in it. So if somebody wants to give us 2 numbers, if you're still out there, we'll give you a mind shifter. Nobody else going to give us 2 numbers? Okay, well, I'll just say that utilizing the mind shifter as a tool can be a profound way to resonate and get to look at, when we talk about brain cells and resonance, in order for the strength of an energy that's stored in brain cells to be increased, you have to add energy to it, and you add energy to it through this law called the law of resonance. And that's basically what's behind the way a mind shifter works. It can expose you to deeper and hidden parts of your own mind. It's just another way, aside from, the forgiveness tool where you cancel a goal, collapse the perception of the moment, that's based in some sort of pain, where the mind then tends to drop right into the pain. Using the mind shifter is another way to approach and access unconscious dynamics. It's a really powerful tool. In fact, every time that we do a mind shifters and still point breathing workshop, the first thing we have people do is to stir things up with the mind shifter. I like to tell a story when we do a mind shifters and still point breathing workshop about the guy who goes into a coffee shop. It's back in the when was it, in the 70s, when the price of sugar went through the roof. It just like sugar was crazy. And this guy has a little coffee shop. And the guy comes in and orders coffee, and he pours the guy's coffee, and he slices sugar over, and the guy puts a spoon of sugar in the coffee, and he puts another spoon of sugar in the coffee, and he puts another spoon of sugar in it. And coffee or sugar is so expensive, this guy's just watching his profits go down the drain. He's having a tough time anyway, so he grabs the sugar away from the guy at the counter and says, "Doesn't that make your coffee too sweet?" And the guy says, "Hell no, not if you don't stir it." And the idea of the mind shifter is to simply stir things in the mind and give people an opportunity to look at deeper and deeper levels of what perhaps has been hidden. So delighted to have this space to share with you. I think we're down to one person, one space available for, I've got a couple of confirmations waiting to come in, but one space available for the quantum still point session starting on the 2nd of March, the 2nd through the 9th. We're doing both 3-day and 5-day quantum still points. And we did confirm the dates for the 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again that is going to happen here in Virginia. And that will be in May, starting on the 23rd of May and going through the 31st. So put that on your calendar. Actually, do more than put it on your calendar. Get in touch with Jeannie and let her know that you want to register. You can drop Jeannie a note at her email address, which is JEANIE at WHYagain.org. So the 23rd through the 29th. It looks like I'm going to do a quantum still point the 3 days before and the 3 days after, and or the 3 days after. So if somebody wants to just make one journey here, they can do both of those events at one time. So that's in the works, in the hopper, and we'll be getting a newsletter out within the next day or two. Thank you for joining us, and have the best year yet of your eternal life. Appreciate you. Lots of love and blessings. Bye-bye.